But I would cut the cord with Ron today.
Yeah.
If I was in charge, I would have cut the cord
What good
in
is
the
it gonna
offseason.
do? What good's it going to do? So let's
I
say
agree
fire
with you.
Ron.
He's dead man walking.
He is a dead man walking.
I think that Eric Bieniemy, I put this on my Twitter yesterday, @GlassJoeJP, when you just look at statistics, 7 games in as compared to last season with Scott Turner, they're very similar. They're scoring a point more per game. They're not, the yardage isn't the same. So they're in the same ballpark. The offense, it's not vastly improved. Mm-hmm. You're going to make an argument that it's improved? I don't know where you're going to make that argument.
Not much. It's basically the same.
And they're on pace. To me, a lot of this is on the coaching, and you could put it on Ron, but I'll put it on Bieniemy. They're on a historic pace for sacks to shatter it.
Yeah, it's not even going to be close.
And it's not just because there's an extra game. The dude is getting sacked almost 6 times a week. They had one outlier game where he only got sacked 4 times. Every other game he gets sacked. Just chalk it up. It could be against the worst pass rush, which the Giants were, the worst pass rush in the NFL. Chalk it up, 5 sacks. Falcons, they don't sack anybody. Boom, all of a sudden they do. Bills, now the Bills actually do have a good pass rush, but when they played the Commanders, I believe they had only had 2 sacks, and then they had 9. They are your get-right team when you face the Commanders, and they haven't addressed anything really to halt it. It's 7 weeks in, and they have not halted that. That's on the offensive coordinator, but to me it's also on the head coach.
It's probably going to get worse because Sadiq Charles came to the sideline with a calf injury.
He's banged up.
I mean, you think he's going to be ready to go Sunday? Like, if you suffer any sort of medium to severe calf injury, that can sideline you for weeks. I wouldn't expect him to be.
Is Stromberg going to have to start against Philadelphia?
He may have to. He may be pressed into action there.
It was just an embarrassment. It really was. And, Jonathan Allen's not going to say anything bad about any of his guys. So that's why he's staying positive. Circle the wagons. They got to get ready for Philly. But since they haven't really corrected those things from week to week to week to week, why would you think it would change?
You said you were going to fire him after the Bears game when everybody was ready to fire him.
Yeah.
And you gave him Falcons game, and then they won.
Right.
But you said that maybe you would after the Giants game.
I would.
You would.
Yes.
All right, so the current tee time tracker for Ron is sitting at October 18th. We've now passed that date. And
he survived.
He survived. And just to make it clear to everybody, this is when we believe Ron will be given his walking papers by Josh Harris. This is not when we would fire him. This is when we believe he'll be let go.
Right. So you actually thought he would have been let go already?
I thought he would have been gone by this date, October 18th. So now I'm going to change it to the date where I think it's actually going to happen.
Can I chime in?
Sure.
I think that it's possible after the Seattle game if they lose the next 3. So they've got Philly next. We all believe that they'll lose that game.
Patriots, Seattle. Right.
Then they go to New England.
That ain't going to be easy.
All right. So let's say New England wins there. And then they go to Seattle. They're not going to win in Seattle. So if they lose that, that'll be 4 straight losses. And it'll be, after a 2-0 start? How many is that? It'll be 1, 2, 3.
It'll be
7 of the last 8.
7 of 8.
So I would say November 13th.
I don't like the date that I have here, but this is when I believe Ron will be let go.
After the season. January 8th.
January 8th. Black Monday,
right.
After the Cowboys game.
That's a good call.
It's not fun. It's not sexy, but I think Josh Harris he's in a holding pattern. He wants to see if things will improve. He's a patient guy. He's run sports teams before. This is not his first go-around with coaches and getting rid of a coach and bringing in somebody new. So, and I kind of buy into what Valdez told me during one of the breaks, that maybe this is like, you know what, Ron, you've done a lot during your career. You've done a lot trying to get things back on track here in Washington. I'm not going to embarrass you by firing you mid-season. Unless the caveat is if Philly comes in here and beats them 35-10, and then they lose 3 or 4 more after that. But I think it's going to be Black Monday.
If they did fire Ron, would you make Del Rio the interim or Bieniemy?
I think it's going to be Bieniemy.
I think it would be Del Rio.
You think it would be Del Rio?
Well, just because he's done it before.
Probably.
I don't know if I'm making Bieniemy. I'm not making Bieniemy the head coach, interim
I don't
head
think
coach.
it matters either way. I don't think it matters.
No, I'm not saying it matters,
Yeah.
but I just think just for consistency and just to kind of keep some chemistry there with the coaching staff, I think I would make it Del Rio over Bieniemy.
Bieniemy has done nothing to deserve the head coaching job this season.
That too.
He may have been overlooked in years past.
Mm-hmm.
But his 7-game resume right now, mediocre at best.
Hasn't distinguished
If he
himself.
wants a head coaching opportunity, he better get this offense scoring in the mid-20s and with the quickness. Because if he doesn't, his next potential employer is going to look at, you're only good for 19 points per game? Get out of here.
But how's that going to turn
how
around
would you
so quick?
blame?
I don't know.
If you had to blame Pie, right?
Yeah.
On the sack issue.
Yeah.
40 sacks, historic.
Mhm. Yeah.
And it can be against defensive lines that
Who do
stink.
I blame?
No. Give me the blame pie. I'll give you mine.
All right.
I would go 50% on the line. Probably 35% Bieniemy, 15% Howell.
I
might go a little higher.
I have a way different.
Hold on.
blame
What is
pie
your
than
question?
If you have the blame pie on just the sack issue.
I have a way different blame pie. 90% of the blame pie
It's Rivera.
Ron Rivera for bringing in an awful offensive line. 5% on the actual line, 5% on Howell. 90%
Zero on Bieniemy?
Ron,
No, he's
Ron-
overlooking the enemy.
Yeah.
overlooking him. Ron is the boss, so Ron takes the blame. 90% because he's brought
All right.
all of these
I
guys in
overlooked
here.
Ron. But I just think Bieniemy, I do think, is part of the problem because there aren't enough easy checkdowns. The balance isn't there. There aren't enough draw plays. There aren't enough screens. Every once in a while, you'll have a game plan. I'm like, oh, okay. But it's not consistent enough. And the guy does appear to like to pass every down. Like
I think I
Jason's
would
mantra.
go. I think I would go higher, a little bit higher on Howell.
How? Okay.
Not 50%, but I think I would go higher than 15.
It's not 50%, but remember, that was one of his big weaknesses coming out of college, and he
Yes.
hasn't gotten any better. If you watched Sunday
That's
Night
what I'm
Football
saying.
last night, they kept talking about how Tua, by the time he sets his back foot on his 3-step drop, that ball is coming out. Howell doesn't do that. He gets back there and then sits, the guy's not open, he panics, and then waits too long and then gets sacked.
I might flip it to 35% Howell and then 15 Bieniemy. I put a little bit more on Howell because he, like you said, he's had this reputation in college, and he's going through game plans every week in practice. He's got to know to get the ball out real quick, and he just looks dazed sometimes when he's in the pocket, and sometimes he's just not seeing guys. Sometimes he's got a chance to run and he doesn't. And, the double clutching, I put a little bit more on him.
Yeah, but like, for example, in yesterday, I thought it was mostly
Yesterday,
the line.
Mostly the line yesterday.
I would agree yesterday, but just over the course of the year.
I'm just going to base it on yesterday. The others, I agree with you. There's certainly been times that he's patting the ball, holding it too long, waiting way too long to run, running into pressure. No doubt. Guilty of all of that.
Mm-hmm.
I thought yesterday was largely scheme and O-line just not executing.
Yeah.
I mean, I maintain they lost this game in the offseason when they brought in Gates and Wiley and they didn't upgrade the other spots.
So you're with Cakes. You want to put it all on Rivera.
Well, he's a huge
He's the architect
of
it all.
He is the epitome of a dead man walking. The chance of him being here next year currently is
Impossible.
zero.
Less than zero.
Zero.
Impossible.
He would have to go on like an 8-game run. It's not going to happen.
I think you'd have to win a playoff game.
He'd have to.
I'd
Even
agree.
then, I don't know. He'd have to. How many games? He'd have to go like 8-2 down a stretch to keep
10
his
games
job.
left.
Impossible.
I think it's impossible.
Physically impossible.
I think it's impossible.
Let's go to the phones.
He's guaranteed to get fired. But I also agree, and I maintain, Bieniemy doesn't deserve the gig.
No.
He doesn't deserve it. He's been mediocre.
Ron is walking the Burgundy and Gold Mile
All right,
right
I'm
now
stealing this
as
from-
we speak.
He might
stealing
be,
this
he
from
might
somebody-
be the de facto head coach already.
Bieniemy?
I'm stealing this
I'm
from
just throwing that
somebody
out there.
who I think tweeted us. Is Jeff Saturday available?
Yes, sir. Can we give the toss the keys to Joe Jacoby? I mean, some former legend from the
Well,
franchise.
he's the offensive head coach. I
I'm
don't
just
think there's any
saying.
question.
I'm just saying he might be the de facto guy at Ashburn. I'm just saying. I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
Sounds
All right,
like
let's go. It
might have
doesn't
some
matter.
skinny.
It doesn't matter. Nothing will change. Let's go to Steve in Waldorf. Steve, what's up?
Hey, it's definitely coaching, and I would say that they should let Ron go down swinging, cut an offensive lineman, and pick one off the street to do something. And here's another fact.
Do something.
You know what I mean? And here's one of the story of the game. How do you run out of bounds and then come back in? And the official said he knew what he did. It was embarrassing. It's all coaching.
You know what he did.
Love your grammar.
Mike
He's
Tomlin
so
has
drunk.
been
Hey, did you ask him
outgained
has he been drinking?
I think he's a hillbilly.
No, he's just from Waldorf.
Hey, Steve, have you been
They're 4-2.
drinking? Steve, have you been drinking this morning?
4-2. No, I'm just mad.
It's fired up.
I've been
Right.
I've been Redskin fan since the 80s, 90s. I've been spoiled.
What do you do for a living? Hey, Steve, I'm
Not
not
the
going to
last
bet.
30
I'm not going to
years.
bet. I just want to know, what do you do for a living?
I'm retired, but I was a sprinkler fitter, like a pipe fitter.
That's a
Okay.
great
That's a
job.
good
Yeah, you
point.
probably
Yeah,
made some
so
good money.
Definitely in a union. Lockie has a pension.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, good for you, man.
But like I said, running out of bounds and going back in, that's bad coaching. Wait to get Mike
All right.
Tomlin.
He's harping on
been
one of the most
outgained.
innocuous things in the game.
4-2. He's
Thanks,
4-2.
pal.
All right, thank you, Steve.
Of all the things to bring up,
7
Hey,
points.
Jason, why is he retired and we're still working?
It's a great
retired.
question. We're still
He
grinding.
sounded like he was 35 years old,
And
too.
he's butt happy.
Yeah.
Except when he's watching
I'm
Commanders games.
exhausted. Cakes and I couldn't sleep last night.
Oh, I had
tossing
the
and
Sunday
turning.
scary so bad.
Yeah.
I'm going to take 3 Benadryl tonight. I hope I wake up. I might not.